Hello and welcome. I am Jamil Khoury, co-founder and executive artistic director of Chicago's Silk Road Cultural Center. I am thrilled to be in conversation today with four stellar Chicago-based theater artists of Iranian heritage: Azar Kazemi, Tina Arfaee, Joan Nahid, and Shadee Vossoughi. We will be discussing Sanaz Toossi's brilliant, funny, and very moving play, Wish You Were Here, receiving its Chicago premiere this fall at Remy Bumppo Theater Company. I would like to begin by asking our distinguished artists to each introduce themselves. Please state your role in the play and provide a brief statement about how you connect personally and or artistically with Wish You Were Here. Let's start with Azar and then Tina, Joan, and Shadee.
Thanks, Jamil. Hi, I'm Azar Kazemi, and I'm directing Wish You Were Here at Remy Bumppo this season. I'm just thrilled to be working on this play. I'm a huge fan of Sanaz. I saw the world premieres of both English and Wish You Were Here in New York City. And I feel, as the daughter of Iranian immigrants, extremely grateful and just... I never thought that I would get to work on a play that's so deeply aligned with my background, my parents' background. So it's just been, and to be in the room with so many incredible actors and artists, it's been such a treat. I think I love Sanaz's economy of language and how funny she is. And she's just sort of hitting on all cylinders as far as a writer goes for my sensibilities as a director. So both from an artistic and cultural standpoint, it's been amazing.
Hi, I'm Tina Arfaee. I play Shadee and Dash, new friend. And I connect to this deeply because, the play starts in 1978 and these women are literally my mother's age. And it's been really meaningful to be a part of a work that speaks to her experience because I haven't really gotten a lot of opportunities to do that.
Hello, I'm Joan Nahid, and I play Rana in this play. I connect to this play because actually I'm an Iranian immigrant and I was born and raised in post-revolution Iran. So this play reminds me like how we grew up in that situation. And also I left Iran 11 years ago. And so the theme of this play that like all these women, they're trying to find a second home for themselves, it really resonates with me.
Hello, I'm Shadee Vossoughi. I'm playing Nazanin. The first time I read this play, I knew I had to be a part of it because it was the first time where all my worlds were colliding. My Iranian background, my theater background, my comedy background. And I just read this script and I thought, I understand this playwright. And I understand her humor. And I think the humor is what connected me to the story first. Because somehow she was able to find humor in Persian and in English, even though it's all in English. So yeah, that's what really drew me to the script.
I have to say, it is such an amazing play. Just having read it, I have not seen a production. I will, of course, be seeing your production. But it's how layered and complex, and I'm not of Iranian heritage, but I just felt so many points of entry. So I think audiences are in for a real treat. I want to begin or continue rather with our first question for Azar, which is that Wish You Were Here is set between 1978 and 1991 in Karaj, Iran. It is my understanding that Karaj is a suburb of Iran's capital city, Tehran. Per the story being told, and the socio-political backdrop of Iran. What is the significance of the 1978 to 1991 timeframe?
Yeah, so I think that Sanaz has done an amazing job sort of encapsulating the revolution or regime change, in the sense that 1978 is a year before that happened. But as she says in the play, there was a lot of static in the air. And that's a line that Shadee has in the play. And so there had been a lot of protests leading up to, and there's a long history in Iran. Our amazing dramaturg, Jacob Schuler, has given us so much great information as far as there's so much rich history. And so the timeline before and after is also very significant. But we go through from 1978 to 1991. In 1979, the regime change happened. The Shah left Iran. Khomeini took over. And then the Iran-Iraq war began in the early 80s and lasted until the end of the 80s. And so then we have sort of the last couple of scenes in the early 90s. And I think that that is sort of a bit of taking us into what will be the next decade. And we get little hints of what that may be for the characters. But I think it's a way to show us how Iran was changing, but more importantly, how it was affecting the people of Iran as it was changing. But what I think is so incredible about it is because of the amount of specificity and detail and focusing so much on the personal, the politicalness of the play effortlessly weaves and comes in and out of the play because it just is a part of their lives. But it doesn't feel like a trauma play or a war play, as Shadee so eloquently said. The humor and the levity and the life of these 5 women is what we get to experience. And that gives us a sense of their humanity. I think it gives the story of Iranian women and just Iranians such dignity in a way that we haven't seen in American media before now, on sort of a large scale.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that humanizing point, particularly against the backdrop that you're referencing, it comes through just so brilliantly in the intimacy of these relationships. So my next question is for Tina, Joan, and Shadee. At its heart, Wish You Were Here is a story about women's friendships and the powerful bonds that connect 5 Iranian friends at a time of profound political turmoil and societal change. In light of your respective backgrounds and identities, what do you see as the challenges and rewards of embodying these characters' stories?
In terms of the challenges, I am Iranian American. I was born in the Midwest, but I grew up in Portland, Oregon. I didn't grow up in LA, where there are a lot of Iranians around me. So I can only really speak to an aspect of the background, right? I think one of the challenges is like making sure I'm honoring the authentic experience of not only living in Iran, but living in Iran at that time. And obviously, my family's experience is one that they left Iran. So I haven't spent that much time thinking about what it's like for the ones who were left. So it's a new aspect of this subject that I've never really tackled until this play. So I want to do right by that and my family and the people that stayed, right? The positive, I mean, not that that's not positive, but the rewards of embodying that is, I think, a deeper appreciation and understanding for my family, because they don't talk about it. They don't talk about leaving. My mother has never really talked about it. So working on this show, I've asked a lot more questions. And then I've realized that they don't even remember a lot of things. And so I think that kind of curiosity is the reward for me. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But it's opened my world. It's expanded my world.
And I would say, I suppose it's been incredibly rewarding, at least just to connect with other Persian artists and other Middle Eastern artists, because there's like a connection that we all have. There's like an understanding, I think, that we all have culturally that when you're the only one in the room of that culture, you have to really explain. And it's been fun to kind of be here and like parse through like, oh, is this like just my quirky family? Or is this like what I always thought, like this is how Persians kind of are in a room together. So that in itself has been really, really rewarding for me.
I think for me, it was all so rewarding because it was like, it just reminds me how I grew up. 2 decades of like my life. I mean, during the war of Iran and Iraq war, and also the decade after that. So it's very, very nostalgic, and it reminds me like when we are like rehearsing this show, like I just remember like all of those details that we used to live with, and the life was much more lively than right now because people used to hang out with each other a lot, and relationships were much stronger, of course, because right now we live in a modern world, and I think it's such a beautiful experience for me of like remembering all those details.
Thank you. I love that there's so much personal learning and connecting taking place in this process. I can only imagine how rewarding that is. So I'd like to return to Azar with the same question, but from the perspective of a director. And I can only imagine, as you've said, what an extraordinary gift it is to direct this piece. Could you speak to the challenges and rewards of stewarding, of directing this play? Wish you were here.
Yeah, I also feel badly. I feel like I'm like trying to answer the questions as quickly as possible. And I realized I didn't even answer your question about Karaj, the suburb that the play takes place in. I just want to say, yeah, Karaj is a suburb of Tehran. It's about 35 minutes away. And I think what's significant about it being set there is a lot of what was happening was in the capital, in the city, but then people started to go disperse out. And so Karaj actually grew as a suburb by like 200,000 over the time period, I believe, of the play is the statistic. And so there was a lot of migration from the capital outwards when there was the active war. So I just wanted to say that. Sorry, I forgot that from before. So yes, I mean, I think Shadee really hit on it. They all really hit on it. I also got very curious and started to ask a lot of questions and learned a lot of things. I'm I feel old. I'm not that old, but I feel old as far as like I'm like 40 years old, and I just learned that my parents didn't immigrate here on purpose. They came to visit my aunt on like a vacation before going back to Iran, and then they never left. And that was something I was not told until I started to do this play, and I was asking questions, and my mom sort of said, "Oh, did I never tell you that?" And I said, "No, don't you think that's important?" And it made more sense because they weren't able to take things with them. We don't have a lot of pictures. We don't have they came with a couple of suitcases, and then what's really rewarding, I think, about the play for me on a personal level is when I read this play, there's a line in the play that sort of describes the people who left. And I don't want to give it away for the audiences, but I learned about my own parents in that play. I'm so sorry. My cat has decided to make a cameo. But she's gone now. I've learned a lot about them. And it opened up, I think, a kind of understanding and a little bit of heartbreak, and also just like even more love and gratefulness to them, because I feel like there's so much that they did leave behind to then build a life here with me. And so it feels really rewarding to get to ask them things, to find the very few pictures that, since we got to go back to Iran many times while I was growing up, bring things back with us, and to re-look through all of those things. And especially to ask my mom about her friends and my aunt about her friends. And they've sent me all of these photos. And it just, as you watch your parents age, it can be really difficult in getting to see them when they're young and the life that they had, and how beautiful, truly beautiful Iran is. And like Nazanin's character says that. And that she loves being from somewhere beautiful. And so it's just connecting me more with being Iranian has always been a huge part of my identity. And to get to, and theater was sort of a refuge for me as someone growing up in northern Idaho. I didn't have a lot of community around me. So when theater was the thing that made me feel like I belonged. And then to find a play written by an Iranian American that feels so aligned with my parents' story, with my upbringing here, is that is just like a gift upon a gift. And I think the challenge was, I mean, these folks can speak to it. I barely get through rehearsal without crying. I feel like this play is so a part of my DNA that I was like, can I be this objective eye as a director? And will I do this play justice when it is so, I've never worked on a play so close to my heart. And so I wanted to make sure that I was also that I was putting the artist first, that I was putting the story of the play first. And I have to keep reminding myself about that every day, because it is so easy to get wrapped up in how personal it feels to me, but it's not ultimately. It's as Sanaz says in her dedication, it's for all Iranian women. And I want to make sure that I'm showing that full breadth of experience, and giving all of those perspectives, like the fullness that they deserve. So that has been like a wonderful challenge. But yes, I think it's like they're both at the same time for me.
So it really is that drawing from all of these worlds, and that idea of theater as refuge probably takes on a whole new meaning. I also want to assure you that you are not old. Speaking as someone with quite a few years on you, but continuing our conversation, many of us fondly remember the Goodman Theater's 2024 production of Sanaz Toossi's play English. I'm curious, Azar, to hear your thoughts as to how the two plays, Wish You Were Here and English, speak to each other. And also, what is your relationship with the playwright?
Yeah, I got to see English both in New York and at the Goodman, and Shadee was in that production, which was so excellent. I thought Hamid did a beautiful job. I find that the thing about Sanaz's plays that touch me particularly is she's not focusing actually on people. At least these two are not focusing on people here, even though at the same time it's like I feel like it's for first generation children in a way, her plays in this really special way. And also it is speaking specifically to the people who were in Iran, who are still in Iran. And I think the character of Elham in English, she's really struggling with the idea of leaving her home. And I think Nazanin is struggling with the idea of leaving, or why does she not want to leave? And I really appreciate that we get to have this other perspective. We've been reading lots of amazing interviews and essays of Sanaz's recently in our dramaturgy work. And she was in an interview and she said, everyone thought I was so lucky because I was in America. But when I went to Iran, I thought they were so lucky. And that was my experience as an only child. The first time I went to Iran, all of my aunts, my dad's sisters were all still there. My grandparents were still there. I have so many cousins, and it was like I hit the lottery. I had been so lonely, and then it was like I had all these people around me. They would go everywhere with me. We would play card games. We would stay up late. We would gossip. It was I gained my girl cousins became like my sisters. I walked around the streets, and everybody looked like me. I mean, there was something so magical about when I got to go to Iran and visit. It was my favorite thing in the world. I got a job just so that I could save money all year. And I started going to Iran before I was even graduated high school, sometimes alone, without my parents. That's how badly I wanted to get back there. And so I think Sanaz has captured the beauty and the richness. And like, although all of this turmoil has happened, although there are many things about Iran that, of course, there were reasons people left, and there are things that we are still struggling with, of course. But there's also such a rich history, and the food and the people and the warmth and our cities and the art. I mean, I've seen many plays in Iran, and they're incredible. The concerts. So I just think she really captures the life that still exists in Iran, and that there's such a negative connotation, or that there's this pull, like everyone just this idea that everyone wants to come here, versus what about the people who stayed and wanted to stay, or the people who came here who didn't want to leave. And I think that English and Wish You Were Here captures that idea in a way that I think we haven't seen a lot. I don't know Sanaz personally. I think, I was lucky enough to get to work in New York before I moved to Chicago and work with, some big name people. There's no one I think I would be. I did meet Sanaz once, and I feel like I fangirled to a point where I'm so embarrassed because I felt so starstruck. And I think she's phenomenal. I would love to, maybe have an artistic relationship with her one day. But if it's just a playwright that I get to admire, like other playwrights that I just adore, and that like made me want to be a director. Yeah. So that's my relationship to her, is that I'm extremely grateful that she's given me a chance to work on plays that align so deeply with everything I believe in. And also I'm like her biggest fan, but I feel like all Iranians feel that, a lot of us Iranians feel that way. So, yeah, I'm just really, really grateful for her.
Something tells me you'll get to know her on a more, personal level. So I don't know. The stars will align. Let us hope. But thank you so much for that. And this is really for the full group, and it's building on the theme of anti-Iranian, anti-Middle Eastern, West Asian racism. Few countries are more maligned and misrepresented in American media than Iran, and few cultures are more distorted and misunderstood than Iranian culture. How does this play respond to and counter the pervasive misrepresentation? And what sort of responsibility do you as storytellers feel or not feel to help change these generally negative and one-dimensional depictions?
Actually, I think one reason is unfortunately, post-revolution cinema in Iran has to obey law, and because the movies, they need to get authorization from the government, so they have to show women in their houses covered, which is not even realistic. And what I really like about this play is that all the scenes are interior scenes, and we can see women as they are, as they really are, and this realistic image of Iranian women that we have never seen, because what we have seen is just like it was like either through the cinema of Iran or like media photos that they are like published. They were published on newspapers, on journals, and from like protests or like some like gathering in Iran, which like women had to cover their hair. And so this is something that I really like about this play. And I don't think that we never had this before. And also, I think like Western people, like, I mean, look at Middle East as a whole, but there are many differences between those countries. Like like I mean, like women in Afghanistan are different than women in Iran, in like other Arab like countries, and this play like specifically like it shows Iranian women. And I think this is we never had this, and that's why I really like about this play.
I think what I really love the most is how funny they are and how raunchy they are. I'll say it. Because there's like a representation, I think, of women from that region where they're maybe a little bit more quiet, a little bit more like, or I guess just like really they laying on the oppression on them. And I know my aunties. I know how they are. I know how they laugh. I know how they rib each other. And like, it's just good to see like joy in the way that we are represented. So that's really my thing. And as far as the responsibility goes, it's hard to say that it doesn't exist because I mean, every person of color, like when you show up in a piece or whatever, you are like carrying your flag. You are representing every single person. And it's heavy. So I'm always balancing like that joy that I'm talking about, like leading with that joy and like letting that be enough, as opposed to being like, well, I have to tell every single Iranian person's story right now, you know?
Because I couldn't tell the story of every Oregonian. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, it's crazy to think that we put that pressure on ourselves because I'm also American. And if I were to play a character that isn't Iranian or let's say is American, I have no feeling of responsibility in that sense, right? It's because we're presenting it to people who might not know enough about the country or the people that we feel like, let me show you, right? What's interesting about Sanaz is that she writes in a way where we can't shove it down your throats. And like, we present it so realistically and naturally that the audience leans in, I find. And I think the way that how we show the audiences who we are is just by playing full human people, like the humanness of it. And I think she does that so well in her writing that it's easy to be a human in her plays. So that's my task, is to show up as a full human. And I just happen to also be Iranian. And the circumstances of what Iranian women deal with, I think, is what makes us, what makes them specifically Iranian people, right? And in terms of like the responsibility that I have, obviously I want to take on any role that is Iranian. But I also think that I depend as an actor on playwrights and directors more so than maybe me as an actor sometimes, because I mean, I naturally will bring my Iranianness to any play that I do, probably, you know, without even trying. But that's why I'm so grateful for our playwrights. That's why it's like changed the whole scope of everything for me, is like, oh, now I have an opportunity to tell this story. I didn't have that before.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, as you can see, Jamil, and I know two of our actors aren't here with us right now.
Would you like to name the other
Yeah,
actor?
yes, Yortana Soliman is playing Zari, and Gloria Mcia Petrelli is playing Salne, and they are incredible. And all three of these women are incredible. The folks at Remy Bumppo have been amazing, bringing this play to Chicago and bringing it to life. All of the designers have been doing so much research and work for months with me. I am a director who I can't do my work until I'm in the room with the other artists. There's a lot of work I will do, of course, up till then, but it is my job to collaborate with everybody in the room and see what they can bring out of it. They are all so funny. They're also magical. From the first read, I was sort of just like, okay, they are so good. Don't mess it up, right? Like, let them do their thing. That's not really answering the question, what you were just bringing up, but I was just feeling so like I was just listening to all of them speak and being in rehearsal. I'm actually I'm like, I didn't want to count how many days are left because once the show opens, I'll come see it, but they continue to live with it and my job is over. And this has been probably the best rehearsal process I've ever had. It's been just such a joyful room, everyone has brought their full selves. They're asking the best questions. They're diving into the language so fully. And I think this is what is so amazing about the play is that Sanaz has written these 5 individual people, and then the play just lifts off the page and goes and fills the whole room with the relationships between them. And I think both of her plays do this, that they are all about relationships. And I think that Persian culture is so filled with our friendships, our families. We just, when our parties are the best, our weddings, and this play has so much celebration in it. And so I think that that's another thing with like the politics of it all, that we are not seeing those moments. Obviously, with what has happened this summer, this play feels even more immediate, important. The play takes place during the last time that bombs were dropped in Iran. And so, but we get to focus on these relationships, on these women, on people have to keep living. People keep living their lives. These things happen, and the resilience and the strength of people continuing to go on comes through in this play, through the jokes, through the raunchiness, through the relationships. We're not talking about it. People are living, and through that experience of seeing those very layered and complex relationships, we discover something bigger about Iran. And I hope that just dawns on people that they're talking about this play the night they see it, a week later, a month later, and that those moments stay with them. For me as an artist, it's really important that I work on plays that are not, so as far as responsibility, that are not in the danger of the single story. There's an amazing TED Talk by Chimamanda Adichie that talks about this idea of the danger of the single story. And I always make sure that I am not working on plays that are going to double down on stereotypes that are so dangerous for so many marginalized groups, right, in the US and the world, but that I'm going to work on stories that transcend that single story, because no one has a single story. And we get to see 5 distinct stories in this play. We, in English, you see 5 different perspectives. And that is really where I think that is why Sanaz's work is being so celebrated, done all over the country, because it is not trying to no one can tell the whole story of the Iranian experience, and we need more stories. And that's why we are so grateful for this playwright and for these plays, because we haven't gotten enough opportunity to tell our story in many different iterations and forms, because that's what makes up a whole people, is all of their stories. And so that's what this play, I think, does so well and gives us the opportunity to do.
I do want to add one thing about the raunchiness, and maybe and maybe this is as a man. As I was reading the play, there were moments where I thought, "Am I like supposed to be reading this? Am I allowed to be in this room?" But I think it just also speaks to the depth and the richness and thank you for what you just shared about the single story and essentially the burden of representation, that you all shared. And it's an unfair burden, and it is unfortunately thrust on so many of the artists in our world of Silk Road backgrounds, and also with the geopolitics constantly rearing its ugly head, makes it harder. But I want to really continue with this thread with the full group, with all of you, and building on that previous question. How would you assess the present state of Iranian American theatrical storytelling? How have things changed over the past, let's say, 10 or even 20 years? And what are your hopes for the future? I know that's a big question.
I'll take a piece, but I want to say one thing about the raunchiness, because you said something that I thought was interesting, where you said, should I be reading this? I think also we touch on what it means to be a woman at that time, or even now, like getting a group of women together and what we talk about. I think people don't know what we actually are like, maybe when we get a group of us together. So I think it's interesting, and I'm excited for more reactions like that. But the question you asked about the Iranian Americans theatrical storytelling, oh man, 20 years, I experienced my first Iranian playwright with you guys at Silk Road in 2020 or 2019 first with My Dear Hossein, which we didn't get to do, but there are so many amazing Iranian playwrights that are coming finally, like their voices are being lifted. There's Joan is also playwriting, but there's Novid Parsi, there's Nahal Navidar, there's Michael Shayan, there's Nikki Masood is also a playwright. So there's like more playwrights. I'm sure there's so many out there that I haven't heard their names. But 20 years ago, I didn't know of any. And then even 15 years ago, really, it wasn't until which is crazy to think about, the last 6-7 years that it has come up for me. And I've been doing theater since I was a child. And I think about like my experiences like in college back in like the early 2000s or like like 2008. I played a lot of my early career in professional theater, I played so many Mexicans. I was Latina. In Shakespeare, in everything, I was Latina. Like anytime they would do like a cultural Shakespeare production, I was a nun in old Mexico. You know what I mean? It was like that. So this is very exciting for me. And I've even reached a point, which is also exciting. I've reached a point where I'm like, I'm not only Iranian, I'm also other things, which is I'm so happy to finally feel like I have other identities too. So I feel excited about the future, and I'm looking forward to reading your play, Joan.
If I can just say about My Dear Hussein, because you had referenced that was really the first casualty of COVID-19 in our producing world. So that remains a point of sadness. But thank you for referencing that.
I think like during the last 11 years that I've been working here as an actor, this is one of the few times that I'm in an Iranian play, and but it just, I think like recently I'm hearing more like about Iranian playwrights and plays about Iran, and they are getting produced, and this is really good because I truly believe that like Iran is a very complicated like country, and like with its background and what happened after the revolution, and it just like it changes that like people are going through changes, that those changes are so dramatic. And so I think like we really need to pay more attention to Iranian playwrights and to Iranian plays that they are about Iran. I mean, it's not like they have to be written by Iranian, but I guess like there is a challenge. As a writer, I can tell that like our Iranian writers, when they immigrate here, it's it's very hard for for a person to write in another language. Like, you know, like when they immigrate here to like lately in their 20s, in their 30s, they are writing in their native language, so they need a translator, and that's I think why we don't see you know enough like plays, like as many that we need from Iranian playwrights, because it's really hard to have them translated into English and then represented in them like to companies. But I really think that we need to pay attention more to those writers and like those plays.
Absolutely. Thank you.
To uplift Silk Road Cultural Center, which when I first started working with you all, Jamil, I worked on a workshop of Izat Gushagir's play, My Dear Anana, and that was a really amazing time. And the first time that I started to meet other, Middle Eastern artists and expand, my community, both with Iranians. And to Tina's point, like, it's so exciting to get to meet more people, and just even having auditions is, I'm really grateful and excited that I'm going to be directing English at Indiana Rep later this season, and just the auditions. Thank you. It's my little plug. But just getting to meet people from all over the country, and actually even all over the world, that are Iranian actors that I didn't know. It was so exciting. And just being in auditions with people was a reward in and of itself, and I wanted to like keep in touch with so many people. And that's the thing I don't like about having to cast a play, is like you want to work with so many people, and then there's, a finite amount of roles. I think, one of my colleagues at DePaul, Reza Mirsajadi, is an amazing scholar and is actually, I know, translating a lot of Iranian plays, and has even introduced me to a lot of Iranian writers, as Joan was talking about, who came from Iran. And then to Shadee's point, I think what's happening now is the first generation are writing their stories now, which is so, and not just for Iranians. I think we're seeing first generation writers across marginalized communities in the United States writing both about their heritage, their native heritage, and about being an American. And I think that's what Sanaz does so well, that was already mentioned, is somehow write a play that so deeply speaks to Iranians, and so deeply speaks to Americans, and to the Iranian Americans. Like, there's this, there are some jokes that are specifically for American sensibilities, and then there are some that I am like, oh, that, if we said it in Farsi, I know exactly what sort of idiom that is, or like saying that is, that we say in Farsi. We've gotten opportunities in the room to speak Farsi, and I've now, because it's happening on a daily basis, I've been doing it like outside the rehearsal room, and people are like, what are you saying? Because I'm like going in and out of Farsi, and I've never been, just the fact that that is something that's happening to me, and this play is enabling that to happen to me, is so exciting and joyful in my life. So yeah, my hope is that we just get to have, that I know the writers are out there, that we just continue to have companies that produce those plays and realize how important they are, and uplift those voices and invest in those stories, that they are thinking about the diversity of their audiences across many different identities, and not just trying to right? People, I think we sometimes we underestimate our audiences. They want to be challenged. They want to lean in. They want to, I don't think we're at that place where people are like, when we did a reading of this, it was Remy Bumppo's audience and subscriber base that were like, we want to do this play. They were crying along with us in the reading. And I don't think any of those people in the audience, maybe one person, I think Arash was there, another amazing Chicago actor, but other than Arash, no one in the audience was Iranian, and people were, right there with us. So people want these stories. And so it's the job of companies and directors to fight for and make these productions happen. Yeah.
Most definitely. And I want to just give kudos to all of you, all of the artists who are involved with this production. And of course, congratulations on the upcoming production of English. That is so exciting. Because you are doing this essential work, and you are also uplifting your souls in doing so. And I think there's something just so profound and moving about that. And Tina, I didn't want to. Did you want to?
I think everyone said it eloquently. Nothing to add.
Great. And then, what are your hopes for this production? What are you hoping Chicago audiences take from Wish You Were Here, both Iranian audiences and non-Iranian audiences? And what is the impact you are hoping to have with this really special piece of theater?
I hope people want to see more. I hope people want to see more of our stories, of our people, of our culture. Because I'm really enjoying being a part of this process. Would love to be a part of more processes like this. And then also just that sharing feels really good. And the give and take of what it means to learn about our culture and also learn about similar stories. I think I would love to just keep expanding that. I hope people are inspired to do so.
I'll speak from a very personal place. This and the actors already know this because I've talked about this a lot, but my mother named me after her best friend in Iran, and her best friend in Iran is still there, and my mom is still here. And they were separated. They didn't talk for many, many years. She didn't even know I was named after her. And I've dedicated this production to them, and I'm really excited to send Azar Bahmani the pictures of the production, the dedication, send it to my family in Iran. My mom is coming to see the show. I'm just really, I'm looking forward to the Iranians who are going to be in the audience. And I hope that they feel a little at home. I hope that they feel seen. The first time when I saw English, I left the theater and I said, at the end of English, they speak in Farsi. And there's some moments in this play that people speak in Farsi, but I felt very much like that was for us. That I don't often leave the theater and be like, that was a story for me. And so I'm excited for the Iranians in Chicago and the ones who are coming from all over the country to see it. At least a lot of my family and friends are coming, that they will feel seen in the theater. Because, we're all going to the theater all the time, but I think it's an opportunity for folks to see a play and think, oh, I didn't know this is the kind of story I could see in a play, see at a play, and that I could learn more about a people and a place, or about myself and my own experience as an Iranian coming to see this play. So that's what I'm hoping that people take away.
And I really believe they will. I think, there's probably going to be so many discoveries, performance to performance, just with, yes, that maybe that's always the case. But I think in this case, a lot of people are going to be experiencing a type of catharsis that comes from that immediacy, that familiarity. So that is exciting.
I think, Jamil, you also said that there are different points of entry in this play, which I think is so true. And I think, or I hope that people watch this play and process a little bit about their friendships and their relationships, maybe people they haven't spoken to in a long time or people that they need to call. I hope people walk away with a change, like that they feel a little changed or a little bit of a different perspective on how to move forward in their relationships. I think that'll happen.
I feel like, I hope that like our Iranian audiences, that they feel that they are back home and they are seeing a show back in Iran for one night. And I hope that everyone gonna just have fun, because we are having fun. I mean, and also for our non-Iranian audiences, I hope that they would feel closer to these women. That because like sometimes they might just, I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad, but like sometimes I feel like we are a little bit exotic for uh, like non-Iranian people, and or maybe because like we are not sharing like the same experiences, and there is not enough like knowledge about it. But I feel like with this play, like we like our non-Iranian audiences would feel like closer to us, and like they see us like as their friends.
I think it will. I think this play does that work, and that is also, and yeah. So just once again, thank you. You are such a brilliant and talented group of artists who are taking on something that is, both very specific to Iranian experience, but also I feel that this is a play that reaches all of us, and I think there's such a broad invitation built into the writing, and that is something always that's been so, from a producer perspective, so fulfilling for us, is when we see those connections somehow made, and so it just, I know I'm being very effusive about, but I feel it succeeds on so many of those levels. So I I want to thank you all for your generosity, for helping our world heal through storytelling. A big break a leg, and congratulations. Wish You Were Here runs September 18th through October 19th. 2025, produced by Remy Bumppo Theater Company, in residence at Theater Wit, which is at 1229 West Belmont Avenue in Chicago's Lakeview neighborhood. For more information and to purchase tickets, visit remybumpo.org. That's REMYBUMPPO.org. And a big thanks to all of you for tuning in. To learn more about Silk Road Cultural Center, please visit us at silkroadculturalcenter.org. And until next time, thank you for supporting live theater. And thank all of you.